Hello. Hello, so today's video we are doing an ethics A2 revision again. However, today we are doing environmental ethics. So again, I have my beautiful mind map with me just to sort of summarise the full thing in one sheet of paper. So what is environmental ethics? It's the relationship between humans on Earth and the world around us. Us and the natural world, and how we make decisions about the environment. So there isn't one complete environmental law on how to go about things, so we're discussing that. So the main issues is the environment of intrinsic value? Is it got worth within itself, or is it instrumental value? So has it got value because we're able to use it? Also, the human's relationship with the world and animals. Should we have dominion over them or stewardship? Should we be dominating over them, or should we look after and care for them? Status of animals. Should it be the same as humans? Future generations, do they need to be considered as well with what we're doing with the environment? Is it going to have a detrimental effect on them? And then are all living things of the same moral value? So humans, animals and plants, should they all have the same moral value? So we're going to be splitting the perspectives up into three. So the first perspective is anthropocentric. So this is human-centred. It can be referred to as light green. I like this because I'm Liz Green and the whole topic's green. So examples of these are people like Aquinas, Kant, Bentham. Simply because they're not bad people, like they don't like the environment, they don't dislike the environment, they just think it was of use to humans, because they were writing at a time where environmental issues weren't occurring, so they didn't feel the need to look after the earth. The second one is biocentric, also known as shallow ecology. So this again is life-centred, but this includes elements such as animals. This is mid-green. And this is people such as Singer. You might know him from utilitarianism. And then also, thirdly, we have eco-centric. So these are deep ecologists, deep ecology. These are dark green, and they are planet-centred. So they love the planet. They're the hippies. Well, they're not necessarily. Let's not stereotype now. They just like the universe. And these are people like Lovelock and Ness. So we are going to start with the religious approaches to the environment. So there is two different ways Genesis sort of interprets how we should look after the earth. So should we have dominion over them, as it says in Genesis 1, so it talks about ruling over the fish and all the animals in the universe, or should we be stewards, as we mentioned previously? So for people that want to have dominionship over the earth and are sort of listening to Genesis 1's interpretation, nature is an inanimate creation of God. Humans have the power to take authority over the natural world. There's basically a hierarchy. God, for them, has placed humans at the top of this hierarchy with reason, as they were made in the image of God, and no other creatures or beings on the universe were made in that. So they feel that they're at the top. They're at the top of this hierarchy, and they can do what they want with the world. And then, as I mentioned before, a lovely quote to put in your exam, Genesis 1, rule over every living creature. This argument is supported by Aristotle, who, another quote, she has made all animals to subject of man. And then obviously Aquinas was inspired by Aristotle, so all of his natural law as well, thinking about it. His quote, all animals are naturally subject to man. So that is the dominion side of it, and that's quite an anthropocentric view of the world. Humans have dominion over it. Life and animals are there for human purposes, for humans doing of what they will. There's also stewardship, which is a really, really nice idea again. And this takes on Genesis 2's idea of creation and how God created it. So they believe that we should have responsibility of looking after the world that God created. We're left as caretakers of what God's created. So in Genesis 2 it says to work it and to take care of it. And this is a really nice way of showing how God has chosen humans to regulate his world for him. So again, that is actually portraying quite a deistic view of God. The fact that he has just left us with this world, he's created it and now he's gone off, he's transcendent, he can't be involved in this creation, so he's left humans to care for it. There's another idea of a religious approach, and this is creation spirituality. So this is the idea that the natural world has intrinsic value, it's got worth within itself, and a scholar you can mention about this is St. Francis of Assisi. How cute, Assisi. So what it says here, God can be found in all of creation, conveys God's purpose and plan. All creatures have the ability or duty to worship God. God communicates through the natural world. So that is a really lovely way of basically saying everything that we see in this universe is sort of a reflection of what God's made on this earth. Everything has got value within itself. So that is sort of an eco-centric sort of idea as well. I keep saying sort of. And then the fourth religious approach is consequences of sin. So this is basically the idea that environmental problems are because of the sin in the world. So in Genesis 3, when Adam and Eve fell from the Garden of Eden, known as the fall, that's what created environmental problems. So this is the moment that humans became bad stewards. Creation has intrinsic value, but also reveals human sin through our bad treatment of the world. Respecting it restores human relationship with God. And then in Isaiah, it's got a really nice quote to talk about. It says, "The earth lies polluted, for they have broken the everlasting covenant." So covenant being like a relationship, that relationship between God and humanity. So that is your religious approaches, nice and simple: dominion, stewardship, creation, spirituality, and consequences of sin. I can never do that, I'll just do that. So, shallow ecology, which is the second one, biocentric, it's not got as much information as deep ecology or anthropocentric, so I'll just mention it now. I'll read it off here. So, the earth is cared for to make conditions better for humans. So, this is the idea that the universe and the world is there for instrumental value. So, this is how the universe benefits us as humans. So, use, allocation, protection of the natural world through technological fixes. So the reason that we should recycle, increase automotive efficiency, so being good for the environment, is all for us. If we don't do that, it's going to screw us up, which is quite a selfish idea, but it's true. It's quite the most realistic idea. If you're imagining, you look at things, you're like, alright, I'm going to recycle because I don't want the earth to be a big dump of pile rubbish. So sustainable development, you don't have to go back. So, ideas of windmills being created, it's sustainable. We don't have to go back to square one to do it. We can implement it now to help the universe in the future. So, unlike secular approaches like the Gaia hypothesis, which is basically saying we're screwed from this out. So, biodiversity is important. So if some life dies, the food chain suffers. So we need differences in species. We need all these species to be here, because if one factor goes, then the rest of it is just completely messed up. For example, if the rabbit goes out of the food chain, it affects us all, because insects can't be eaten, which is going to create a massive influx of all of those guys. The fox doesn't have any food. The foxes, they're nice to us. You get what I mean. I explain it a lot better than that in the exam, please. So, that is basically your shallow ecology. It's quite a selfish idea. However, Singer has quite a beautiful addition to this. As a preference utilitarian, he talks about preferences of not just humans but animals. So he says to avoid species, and we should also think about animals, so give an intrinsic value to animals as well, so caring for those. Yeah. And then there is also deep ecology, our last one. So we'll start with Arnie Ness. But the basic idea of deep ecology is that the earth and all of life has intrinsic value independent of its use for us, so in comparison to shallow ecology. So it teaches us that reverence for life and celebration of diversity are an intrinsic good in themselves. Environment is preserved for its own sake, so we shouldn't preserve the environment because it's going to be beneficial to us. It's because it's got intrinsic value, not instrumental. So Arnie Ness began this movement in the 60s, and this emerged from Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. So Arnie Ness talks about how we need to keep ecosystems healthy for their own sake. So an example of how he did this was he did not a campaign, but like he stood for what he believed in. Like he literally, when this dam was gonna get ruined, he and a couple of the team would be like sleeping there just to be like, dude, you're not gonna get rid of this dam, like you're gonna kill us if it has to be done. But the example that you should use in the exam is that of a mountain which has dignity and it shouldn't be violated for the sake of humankind. So the mountain example. So Rachel Carson's, she was an early 20th century scholar. She was a US marine biologist, and she basically spoke upon DDT and the toxicity of pesticides. So back in like the 30s and 40s, these pesticides came out and everyone was like, yeah, cool, okay, we're getting rid of insects, this is really great, it's helping our plants and things. So pesticides are used to kill insects. However, it got into the food chain, so it managed to ruin plants, which managed to ruin milk, eggs, animal. This whole pesticides ruined the full chain. And a lovely quote of Rachel Carson is, "The balance of nature was repealed as soon as man came on the scene. Well, you may as well repeal the law of gravity. The balance of nature was repealed as soon as man came on the scene. Well, you may as well repeal the law of gravity." So this is basically saying that the balance has to continue and humans are creating an imbalance. So as soon as it took me a while to get my head around that, just reading it then, if you didn't already notice. But basically, as soon as humans came onto the scene of we're going to look after the world, etc., it ruined it. Like the universe was beautiful in itself. And this goes on to the Gaia hypothesis by James Lovelock. So he wrote A New Look of Life on Earth. So this is a holistic environmental theory, and it's more than just a principle, this whole idea of the environment and the Gaia hypothesis. It describes the vital energy of nature. So Gaia was the Greek name for goddess. The Greek goddess name for earth, that's the one. So he was saying that we are acutely aware of all subatomic matter, especially at subatomic level. So Earth itself is a part of the living supporting biosphere, but the planet itself is alive. So Earth is self-regulating through these feedback loops, which maintains or balances life system. For example, reflecting the sun rays back to space traps the methane or CO2, which regulates our world's air composition. So human existence may be destroyed by Gaia's survival mechanisms, so that environmental damage which threatens planetary survival will stop. So I'm just going to read all this and then I'm going to do a little bit of an explanation. The implications are either it's for our greatest good that we reduce emissions and release pressure on the environment, or we only have limited influence on the planet. Some life form will survive, but the human race may not. And a lovely quote for this is, "The dynamic physiological system that has kept our planet fit for life for more than 3 billion years." So that is basically this idea of the Gaia hypothesis. So basically, the Earth itself can maintain its own way of surviving. That's an example of how the sun rays are reflecting back, making sure that these methane gases aren't affecting us, etc. And it's really, really cute that humans are like, you know what, we're in charge of this, we can help the Earth. If we mess it up, we can help this Earth. However, what James Lovelock is saying is that the world, the planet is so kick-ass that it can do it on its own way. We're basically screwing ourselves over if we're not looking after the earth, because it's going to find a way. It's got these feedback loops, and it's going to find a way to help itself, and we may not be involved in that helping. So the human race may die out in order for the planet to survive because of what mess we've created. Right, that is basically your environmental ethics with the religious, shallow ecology, and your deep ecology as well. And then also you'll be expected in the exam to add in all your perspectives on how utilitarians would view this, how Kantian ethics would view this, natural law, etc. But I think that shall be all. I'll obviously be doing those little cute annotations that I do just because I enjoy it. But yes, enjoy revising, and I hope you kick ass at this exam. Yeah.